Welcome to Uncle's Channel. Thanks for watching today. Let's continue our journey to finish every single Game Boy Color game. And today we're focusing on a game called Primal Rage for the original Game Boy. Now I never had this particular version of the game. However, I'd go to the arcades and I'd see this game and I was like completely mesmerized and captivated by it because you had all these prehistoric dinosaurs or prehistoric gorillas fighting it out with all these like magical fire powers and ice powers, and I mean bloody as could be as well. It was like it was Mortal Kombat mixed with like what you wanted dinosaurs and prehistoric life to be. And I just loved everything about it. I can't say like I ever played it a lot at the arcade. I would just simply see it there because we didn't like spend a lot of money at the arcade. We just simply journey through it and see all the cool demos and things like that. And Primal Rage always captivated me, always pulled me in. And I'm really excited to finally give it a try today on the Game Boy. And we're going to sort of break down and see if this Primal Rage is going to live up to what my memories or hopes for the arcade game were back in the 90s. Now I always like to start the videos off looking at the box art for the game first, and the box art for Primal Rage is top notch here. You have the character named known as Chaos, who I found out playing the game here, and of course he is in a victory pose, and I mean that is just a awesome looking piece of artwork, and I love the art style. I love the ferociousness of it. I love the logo of Primal Rage, you know, all in fire there, with like the E being sort of scratched off with the probably the dinosaur claws. Great cover, that's all I can say about it. I love the cover for this game. And it matches up with my memory of the arcade. Now when you start the actual game up here, you get a little title screen, a little animated of the E being scratched off, and then it scrolls down and gives you a very, very short version of the story. And it basically just simply shows you a new version of our planet here, and it's shaped like a dinosaur to some degree, or not some degree, it's shaped like a dinosaur skull. And it says, who is going to rule the Earth? And it's spelled U-R-T-H, and at first I was like, that's off to a bad start there. But that was like all the story we got. And so I was really curious about the game because, like I said, I was, you know, interested as a kid. And so I looked up the actual story for the game. And evidently, like in modern humanity, meteorites strike our planet here and they pretty much wipe out human civilization. And humans are sort of cast into the background, like almost like the Stone Age type thing. And when the meteorites strike, of course, the continents rearrange themselves to be in the shape of a dinosaur skull. And it awakens all of these legendary or mythical creatures to rule over each one of the little continents here. And that's where we're going to get like Chaos, we're going to get like Talon, Sauron, and you know, other characters here as well. And each one of these sort of rules over their area, and the regressed humans sort of worship these mythical creatures, and each one is going to be fighting it out to take control of the entire planet. And that's the overall story of Primal Rage, and I don't know, it's a pretty cool little story. I wish they'd like actually said it in the game or had like a little animated cutscene with Game Boy graphics. That would have been pretty cool. But anyway, we got the very, very condensed version of the story here of who's going to rule the world. Now before I started the game, I did look at the options, and the option was set for difficulty level 4, and I usually go with whatever the factory setting is for this particular challenge, so I left it at 4. Now from here, when I start the game, you have two different options. You can do one player mode or training mode, and since I had never played this game before, I did do training mode, and there are 6 characters that you can choose from. You can do Sauron, Talon, Blizzard, Chaos, Armadon, or Diablo. And as I was scrolling through them, I didn't really mean to, but I picked Blizzard for my training simply because time ran out and there's not like an actual time setting, so it just like randomly picked a time to select my character. And the computer picked Armadon also because of the time setting here. And when you started it up here, like I'll admit I didn't have a clue what I was doing, and I lost the training mode. I mean, I don't know how many games out there I've actually lost in training, but I lost the training mode in this particular game. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I was pressing buttons. Both A and B both simply do a punch attack. One's your quicker attack, one's your slower attack. But both of them are a quick attack. And you simply move the direction keys. And I couldn't figure out any special moves. I couldn't really do anything, and I lost this pretty horribly. But since I wasn't playing as the character that I wanted to play as, and I figured I could probably just simply learn as the game went, I decided to go back and just simply start the one player mode itself and go through the tournament mode of the game, which is really the only game mode that you have. So when I loaded back up, I actually picked the character that I wanted according to my memory of the arcade, which was Talon, because he was this awesome looking little raptor here. And I mean, look at the little hairstyle on him. I mean, come on, how could you not pick Talon? So I selected him, I started the game up, and my first fight is, of course, Talon versus Talon. And so when you go into the battle here, first thing you're going to notice is like the graphics here are very akin to like what I'd say Donkey Kong Land was on the Game Boy. It's like they're taking the high-res images of the game that was computer animated for the Super Nintendo or the arcade, and just sort of reducing that down and pixelating it down to sort of give like the same effect of the Super Nintendo, but at the same time it looks pretty messy on the Game Boy, but you still have that hint of realism behind it. And so it's like the 90s version of fake good graphics is what I would sort of call it. And some games it works out pretty well on, and some games it falls pretty short on. And this game is going to be sort of hit or miss. On the first level here, Talon versus Talon, you're fighting in somewhat of a jungle to a degree. And it doesn't really look that great compared to the background as far as like images blurring into the background. And it's not really my favorite effect as far as that goes. And the game also didn't like shade the characters if you're playing two of the same character, so you can like know who is who. And so it's really easy to get confused which Talon you are as you're fighting against Talon here. And so that's a little bit on the annoying side. But as I was fighting the battle, the actual gameplay of it, the controls are very responsive. The gameplay is pretty tight. However, like I was not really doing that well because all I really knew how to do was simply punch. Or if I bent down and pressed the A button, I could do like a little side kick. And I wasn't really doing that well. So I was like, what are my special moves? And so I like hit pause, it didn't say anything. Hit select, it didn't say anything. So I went to the internet and I like looked up what are Talon special moves. And they weren't really that hard to execute. All you have to do is press A and B at the same time, or just really hold those two buttons down, and then press down and right, or up and right, or up or down up right, and you'll do one of his 3 main moves. There are other moves out there, but I'm not really great at fighting games, so if I can keep them simple, I do best with that. And so once I learn some of his special moves, I do a whole lot better, but I'm still not like really proficient at the game. And so it takes me a couple tries to actually defeat my own self here, defeat Talon. And I love when you finally defeat Talon. I love his little victory dance here. I mean, just look at it. He's having like the time of his life just simply because he won a battle. Now, after you win the first fight, it shows you the little world here, and it shows that you conquered one little territory called the Strip, and then you move on to your next battle. And up next is going to be Diablo, and Diablo is going to take place in a volcano setting here. And I mean, it really is fitting because Diablo's special move is sort of turning into a little cinder here and burning you to a crisp. And he's very effective at doing that move, and actually lost the first time and had to beat him on the second time around. But once again, the background sort of blurs into your characters, and you really can't tell your character sprite very well apart from what's going on with the volcanoes and such. And so this level, once again, carries on sort of the same flaws as the first level. But gameplay-wise, I'm simply fighting against a different dinosaur now, has different moves on me, and it's cool to see some of those moves going against me. Now when I defeat him, it says I conquered the Inferno on my little map here, and move into my next battle, which is going to be against Blizzard, so the polar opposite here, no pun intended there. And you're fighting in an ice world, and this is probably one of the best worlds so far, because you can truly tell the differences in the sprites of your characters and the background. There's great contrast here, and I wish they'd done more of that in the actual game. And I love in the background that the mountain, or the ice mountain in the back, actually has like carved in the side of it Blizzard's face, and so that like sort of goes into the lore a little bit of like how the humanity is worshiping Blizzard, possibly done like, you know, a idol to him or a statue to him in the background. I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. It plays more into the story that the game did not tell us, but I like it. Now, Blizzard himself is extraordinarily effective at freezing me. If you thought Diablo was good at burning to a crisp, Blizzard here is constantly just simply freezing you to a little ice cube, and you just simply can't move, and he comes up and takes a free hit on you. And man, he is really, really effective at it. And if I was going to redo my entire gameplay here, I'd probably select Blizzard, just simply because I love the freeze move and having that time to get an attack in. And I don't know, it's like Sub-Zero for Mortal Kombat. I always loved playing with him, and so I think Blizzard would have been a good fit for me if Talon hadn't been so awesome looking. But as far as like gameplay goes, I'm getting better at doing my special moves, and you can see at the top of the screen, the top bar is of course your life bar, and below that is your special meter as far as like executing like super special moves, which I don't think I ever executed during the entire playthrough. They may have done some against me, but I never could get them to work in my favor, and I also was never able to execute a successful fatality in the game either. But even without doing the super special moves or fatality, I still was able to defeat Blizzard, and I conquered the next area on our little map here, which is going to be the cliffs. And following that, I do move on into the caves, and we fight against Armadon. And Armadon has a really annoying move that's probably more effective than the freeze move or the fire move, and he can shoot out these little spikes at you. It hits you, it like stuns you for a second. It does a pretty good bit of damage, and Armadon's one of the harder characters, at least for me in the game. And I finally figured out, like, probably, I guess, my best cheese move. And that's really how I win most fighting games. If I go against, like, human opponents, my strategies don't work at all. But going against computers, I find, like, the best exploits. And so I figured out my Frantic Fury is going to be my ultimate move, which is going to be down and toward the character. And I go into this little claw tornado-looking thing here, flying my claws, and I just sort of tear into them. Even if they have their shield up, I still do a little bit of damage to them. And if they don't have their shield up, I knock them up into the air, and it does a great deal of damage to them. And if I get them into the corner, I can just simply do Frantic Fury over and over and over, and it's very difficult for them to escape. I'm not saying they can't escape, but it's very difficult for them to escape, and I can take away a significant portion of their health. And I'm going to be using this strategy pretty much for the rest of the game, with a few exceptions here and there. Now when you beat Armadon, you conquer the Hollows, and you move into your next area, which you can fight against Sauron, and you're back on the beach here. And once again, they're opening up as far as like a great background for the contrast of the characters, and Sauron's a very fun battle. Instead of having like a spikes or ice or fire, he just simply shoots out an energy blast against you, and pretty powerful, but once again, not as powerful as our frantic fury. We get in the corner, we wail away, we have him defeated in no time. And that means we've conquered the Cove, and from the Cove we move on to fight Chaos, and Chaos is fighting a complete cityscape here. Almost reminds me a little bit of the game from the 90s, or I guess the 80s. I guess early 80s. I don't think it's the 70s. But a Rampage where you're like a gorilla in the city, and you go through and you just sort of tear down the whole city like you're King Kong. And you can fight like lizards and werewolves and that as well. But I specifically remember the giant ape for that game. And I don't know, the cityscape mixed with the character of Chaos, it reminds me of some degree of that game. But Chaos is a pretty powerful little opponent here. He's got a pretty effective little blast on you. And probably the hardest in the game, but still, if I get in that corner and I get that frantic fury started and don't let up on it, the battle's mine. And after you defeat him, you've conquered the ruins, and then you move on into your final battle for the game. And this is a really cool idea for a fighting game. What they do is they basically take you through all of the characters that you fight thus far, one at a time, and as you fight them, when you defeat them, whatever health you have left is what you go into the next battle with, and then when you die, you have to use one of your continues. If you run out of continues, you lose the overall game in general. And so if you've used a lot of your continues throughout already this tournament, you're not going to have very many left over for this final battle here, going through all of them back to back to back. And so as long as you save them up though, you're in pretty good shape, but you are going through one character after another until you finally defeat all of them. And once you defeat all of them, it gives you a little message here, and it says, Talon conquers, you are the master, you rule the earth, of course capital, U instead of the E. And then you get to enter your initials, and then the credits begin to roll. But let's talk about the game as an overall here. As far as like a Game Boy fighting game goes, I think it's pretty average. I think it's a fine game. The controls are very responsive. The special moves are easy to execute. The gameplay is a little bit lacking as far as like extra modes and stuff like that. But a lot of them don't have a ton of modes. It's just simply a tournament fighter, and that's what this one is. There's no link cable capabilities, and now it's a little bit on the missing side, because a lot of these games at this time period anyway, you could actually fight against people. And that's something that you could have easily done in this game, and would probably boost it up a little bit as far as like people's memory of the game. But as far as like just simply a solid fighting game, I think it's a fine game. But let's compare it to my memory of what I thought Primal Rage was going to be based upon the arcade, and this is a complete downgrade of like everything that I remembered about the game. I mean, yes, the dinosaurs are there, you get a little screenshot of them in the character select, but in like the main gameplay mode itself, it's pretty difficult to make out a lot of the cool details or the cool graphics that were in the arcade. All the blood is completely gone, and from my memory, it was a very bloody, very gory game, and that's something that like really pulled you into it. A lot of the, I guess, charm, or a lot of the edge of the game is pretty much absent in the Game Boy version. It just feels like an ordinary fighter. It feels like you could have pretty much replaced any of these characters with just an ordinary human fighter, and you'd have pretty much a similar experience as far as that goes. The characters themselves don't add a whole lot to the game. I feel like if they tried to like incorporate more of the story into the game and try to, lift that up a little bit, maybe show some like sprites between the screens as far as like characters, getting ready to have a fight, like little animation scenes, or like, just one little cartoon strip as far as like an animation goes, it would really help the game out a lot. This feels like a very basic port or cut down port, and not a lot of love or effort was put into this game. I feel like they saw like the arcade game, everybody loved it, and they're like, hey, let's get on the Game Boy, let's make some money on it. And they did a very, very average port of the game. I don't think it's a bad game, I just don't think it lives up to what the arcade was, or at least my memory of what the arcade game was. And they just created a very, very standard fighting game on the Game Boy. And so on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably give this game a solid 4. I think a 4 is a pretty good score. If they had simply brought in more of the story, tried to make a little more charm to it, connect it more to the characters, I think they would have gone a whole lot further on that. They could have left the graphics the same and the fighting mechanics the same, but just simply adding more charm and more individual edge to the game could have gone a long ways. But what do you all think? Do you have fond memories of Primal Rage? Did you enjoy the game? Did you hate the game? Let me know in the comments down below. If there's a game that you want to see me cover sooner than later, let me know the name of that game in the comments down below as well. And as always, go out there, find a great game to play. Simply have a great rest of the day.